Part 197. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1966. The sweet but troubled life of a nanny passes quickly. Gretel's little daughter, or the young silver dragon, grew up rapidly physically and mentally. 1 month after landing, he has grown from being able to stand up unsteadily by pulling on his robe to being able to stand and walk very steadily. After 2 months on the ground, he could spread his short legs and rush from the corner at one end of the hall to Gretel at the other end of the hall, bumping into him with a bang, or bumping into him on the desk. After 3 months on the ground, not only can she walk, run, and jump, but she also likes to jump from high places. When you are scared out of your wits and anxious to teleport over, her natural feather falling technique has been activated, floating in the air, and watching laughing at you. Greet guessed that the reason for such rapid growth was that it took a really long time to hatch in the egg. 2.5 years of pregnancy, 3 years of incubation, and 5.5 years of incubation. Excluding the 10 months it takes a human to conceive, that is still a 4.5-year-old baby. It is extremely normal to have such mobility and mind. On the other hand, dragons are different from humans after all. Young dragons, especially white dragons and red dragons, sometimes struggle to survive from the moment they break out of their shells. Even the young dragons of gold and silver dragons, who generally grew up with their parents, may face some kind of accident and end up living in the wilderness. Therefore, once the young dragon hatches out of its shell, it must grow as quickly as possible to have the ability to move and the mind to judge the surrounding environment. What's more, any young dragon who awakens his true name has the inheritance of the dragon clan, and wisdom is not a problem. But if the wisdom inherited from the dragon clan is used to deal with him, it will be a problem. It's okay to be naughty and mischievous, but you can't hit or scold. The little baby, who was 3 months old, could already speak very clearly. After scolding her a few times, she ran to grab the hem of Cyrilla's skirt and complained one after another. When it's time to put on a straight face and reason with her, the little girl blinks her silver blue eyes again, looking at you cutely and watery. Ava doesn't understand. After a few more words, she suddenly turned into a baby dragon and ran all over the place, or she turned into a baby dragon, ate a big meal, and then found a place to curl up. With his tail curled, his head pushed under the dragon's wings, he pretended to sleep on the spot. Often he just pretended to be asleep, and then he actually fell asleep. The length of sleep was variable, it could be 1 day, 3 days, or 5 or 6 days. The time of waking up is uncertain, it may be in the morning, it may be at noon, it may be in the middle of the night. The only thing in common is that as long as you wake up, you must eat and drink. For this daughter who constantly switches between human form and dragon form, sometimes switching autonomously, sometimes not being able to switch autonomously, with super mobility and a large range of movement, Gretel had to move. From the Mage Tower in Nevis, we moved to the dragon lair in Cyrilla on Dragon Island. It must be admitted that a dragon's nest is still suitable for raising children and raising young dragons. Thank God, the little girl's current range of activities is still limited to the dragon's nest, as well as the platform at the entrance of the dragon's nest and the mountain where the dragon's nest is located. Gretel's Mage Tower in Cyrilla territory is more than 10 kilometers away from the dragon's nest. It is on another mountain. Moreover, it is on the back of the mountain, facing away from the dragon's nest. The little girl can't find it yet. Over the past few decades, Cyrilla's family members have also collected a large number. Gutierrez, the half-step legendary frost giant whom Gretel had controlled before, invited a group of his own tribe and a group of giants driven out by other tribes to settle in the territory. Taurans, cloud giants, wild boars, and other powerful races came one after another. The barbarians in the wilderness also moved several tribes over and took shelter in Cyrilla's territory. It's great here, no one collects taxes, and you don't have to go out with large armies to rob, you just need to quietly cultivate the land and serve the Lord. There were even several tribes of orcs who dragged their families across the wilderness, and then across the ocean, insisting on coming over to hug Cyrilla's thigh. Cyrilla is also capable of doing everything. Territories always need managers, and dragon nests always need someone to do the fine work. After all, those dwarfs are good at cooking and the food is delicious. However, they cannot cook hundreds of kilograms of animal meat at a time for the young lady, so someone needs to do hard work. A blue-horned antelope, just throw it to her. Sarah took command as a matter of course. Greet looked sideways. How can that be done? The raw ones may have parasites. Of course they should be cooked and eaten. Hey, people say, Dad takes care of the baby, as long as one of them stays alive. Why in our house, it's Mom takes care of the baby, just stays alive. How can such a young child eat raw food? It's okay. The dragon clan doesn't care about this. What kind of parasite can rebel in the dragon clan's stomach? Cyrilla waved her hand nonchalantly. When I was little, I always ate raw food. Whatever my parents caught, they would just throw it to me. Then you are really living a rough life. Greet felt a little distressed, and racked his brains, trying to convince his wife. Eating cooked food is good for digestion and absorption. A high intake of nutrients is also good for brain development. You mean my brain developed slowly when I was a kid? I wasn't smart. It was over, those silver blue eyes began to transform into sterling silver. Cyrilla became angry. That's not what I meant. But no matter what, it tastes better when cooked, and the children can eat more, right? Where did you eat more? Cyrilla looked down. The dwarf directed, and the two wild boar workers fried, stewed, boiled, and stir-fried. Plate after plate, basin after basin, and jar after jar of dishes were delivered to the little daughter like water. The little girl sat upright on a special high chair, dangling her two short legs, and ate quickly from left to right. However, as I ate, my eyelids began to droop, and my head sank little by little. When you eat something cooked, you have to turn into a human form and eat it. How much can you eat in a human form? 5 kilograms. 10 kilograms. You fell asleep before you finished eating. Sure enough, before she finished speaking, the little girl fell into a large pot of radish stewed with mutton, smearing herself all over her face. She arched twice in the basin, closed her eyes and opened her mouth, took a few mouthfuls, and quickly fell asleep again. I say eat it raw. Throw a whole antelope to her and eat it in one go, and the child can sleep for 5 or 6 days. Eat cooked food like this, and after eating it in one meal, she will wake up hungry in less than 2 days. Irelia. Wake up. Finish this bowl of mutton. Ugh, Ava, don't get up. The little girl cooed once, then cooed again, curled up into a ball, and fell asleep in her father's arms. Greet had no choice but to wipe her face clean, carry her to bed, and come back to give the chef an order. Next time, roast 2 whole lambs, so that the little lady can be transformed into a human form so that it is easier to eat. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1967. Boom. Ava. Watch out. Boom. Ava, you can't go over there. You can't enter that room. Boom. Bang. When Gretel's eldest daughter Irelia reached the age of 3, her growth rate suddenly slowed down. The human-shaped ones have also lost their height, and the dragon-shaped ones have also lost their height. They sleep hard every day, and when they wake up and eat, they run around. It started by running in the dragon's lair, which contained a library, Gretel's laboratory, and Cyrilla's treasure. Don't touch this, don't move that, even if the utensils are precious and fragile, if the little lady touches them casually, they will immediately fall down and shatter to the ground. After exploring the dragon's nest for half a year, Irelia lost interest in the dragon's nest and began to run all over the mountains and plains. With the dragon's nest as the center, the entire mountain top, the beach, and shallow sea below the dragon's cave were filled with her shouts and screams. Smoke and dust billowed everywhere she passed, and birds and beasts fled in fright. Bernard followed behind her, terrified, not daring to take a single step. "Miss Ava! Don't hit that tree dash!" Boom! A human-shaped dent was made in the trunk of the tree. It shook twice, and the fruits on the tree fell to the ground with a crackle. Irelia pulled herself out of the tree trunk, hammered the trunk twice, squatted down, and picked up fruits from the ground to eat. "Miss Ava! Don't provoke the wild boar king!" Boom! A girl who looked to be only 3 years old collided head-on with the wild boar king weighing 1 ton. The girl's delicate white and tender palms grasped the sharp fangs of the wild boar king, pressed down hard, raised them, and swung them. The wild boar king let out a cry, was lifted up in the air, was thrown over his shoulder, and landed on all fours on the ground. "Miss Ava! It's dangerous in the sea dash." "Wow!" The little girl emerged from the waves, dragging a clamshell bigger than the bathtub in her right hand, and walked to the shore step by step. Walking to the shore, he opened the clamshell, jumped in with a smile, and dug around inside. "Uncle Bernard! Look! Pearls! So many pearls! Very good, the little lady's treasure house has a little more treasure." Gretel really felt that it was a bit unbearable for him to take care of such a naughty child himself. He also tried to teach his daughter some knowledge. In theory, if the young dragon starts to learn magic and its mind grows, it will advance faster. However, whether she is reading to her, doing experiments with her, or demonstrating magic for her, Irelia's reaction is exactly the same. Yawn. Just, not interested, especially not interested at all. Fortunately, thanks to his rough skin and thick flesh, he would not be in danger as he ran rampant in the mountains with Bernard protecting him, so Gretel had no choice but to let the little girl go. He discussed with Cyrilla in annoyance, and received a look from his wife. "What's the big deal? How old is Ava?" "Just 10 years old. A 10-year-old dragon should be eating, drinking, playing, and rolling around. Why force her to learn?" "But Ava is still half human." "Only 1/4, okay. The other quarter is of elf blood. What is a 10-year-old elf doing? Isn't he eating, drinking, and having fun? Well, you have this time, why not come together and think about how to give birth to the next one? How does it happen? Let's lay eggs, let's have babies." Cyrilla threw herself on him and put her hands around his shoulders. "Last time, I laid eggs. This time, I want to change the pattern." "Don't," Greet broke into a cold sweat. During Cyrilla's last pregnancy, she had an egg in her belly while in her dragon form, and it couldn't be seen at all. As for the humanoid state, he has a slim figure and moves briskly, and there is no sign of a child. Apart from the great effort required to gather energy and provide dragon eggs during the pregnancy, she didn't suffer much at all. However, if you want to have a child directly, don't. It's very hard for a woman to be pregnant and give birth to a baby. It's very, very hard. The baby will grow very big, pressing up on the internal organs, pressing down on the bladder, making it difficult to eat, frequent urination, and leg cramps. Endocrine disorders, gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes, all kinds of problems will come to our door. In the later stages, the spine will be bent, making the delivery process even more painful. Cyrilla, you have seen it? But I don't think I will be like this. Cyrilla ignored his words. I am a dragon and not a human being. How could I suffer the sufferings of human women? The human form is just a conjuration, my essence is still a dragon. Giving birth to a child in human form will definitely not stretch me until my internal organs are deformed or something like that. Don't worry about this, let's get down to business. I have a feeling that I want to have a humanoid child, we have to be humanoid. Hey, hey. Don't be so fast. It's still daytime. 10 years after the eldest daughter was successfully hatched, Cyrilla became pregnant again. This time, Gretel was even more frightened than last time. The last time, Cyrilla looked normal. No matter whether she was in human form or dragon form, there was no difference in appearance, only the energy flow was different. But this time, her belly has been slightly bulging since she was 5 months old. When the pregnancy was due in 10 months, her belly was as big as that of a human woman who was 8 months pregnant. After 1 year, her belly was as big as a foot. Pregnant women are no different. And she was pregnant for another 3 years this time. 3 years. Are you expecting a Neza? Greet was frightened and complained silently, but did not dare to say it out loud, lest Sarah pull his ears and ask who Neza was. Just answer the question, but if she wants to continue asking, she will tell her the whole story of Neza, including how he killed a dragon in the sea, committed suicide in anger, transformed into a lotus flower, and destroyed Shang and became a god. Sarala will cry when she hears Neza eviscerating his bones to return to his father, cutting off his flesh to return to his mother, etc. Gretel had no choice but to go around Sarala 100 times every day. Fortunately, apart from her big belly, Sarala didn't feel any additional discomfort. She could eat, sleep, and had no frequent urination or leg cramps. Blood pressure? Blood sugar? Sorry, the vital signs of dragons are very different from humans. Greet even suspected that she deliberately carried such a big belly just to watch her heartbeat and watch her circle around her all day long. After 3 years of serving tea and water, squeezing her legs and beating her back, Sarala finally announced that she was going to give birth. Gretel. Do you want me to help deliver the baby? Do you want me to call Anavia and the others over to help deliver the baby? Whatever you will give birth to, it must not be a meatball. Then, he was kicked out by Sarala. My wife was alone in the dragon's nest bedroom for a day and a night, and she didn't know how to deal with it, but she gave birth to a son. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1968. Boom. Snapped. Hualalala la. Ori. Help fix these. Irelia's energetic voice rang out. The little boy sitting in the corner, reading a book larger than himself, shook his head and stood up, walking slowly towards the corner of the hall with his short fat legs. Naturally, it is impossible to walk very fast with short legs. After taking a few steps, the girl rushed over, picked her up, and flew towards the corner. Ava, don't carry me. Orlion moved his limbs, expressed resistance meaningfully, and then lowered his hands and feet, not wasting any more energy. The girl smiled and lifted him up, shaking him. You're walking slowly. You're wasting your time walking around. Look, we're here. Orlion looked down at the broken porcelain on the ground, muttered a few words, and pointed down. A shadowless and invisible magical force passed by, and the broken pieces of porcelain, large and small, jumped up automatically, spliced together, and the gaps disappeared, turning into complete dishes again. Okay, I say Ava, be careful in the future. Don't break things every time and then ask me to fix them. Oh, you learned magic, you just have to use it, the elder sister said confidently. Please come and repair it. Isn't it to increase your magic experience? Besides, I'm not calling you in vain. Come on, I found this magic crystal in the woods. Here it is for you. Compared with Irelia, the strange little dragon girl who has almost no interest in magic and relies entirely on instinct, Gretel's son Orlian is an out-and-out spellcaster. This child awakened his true name when he was born, had the same mind as a young dragon, and also had the ability to cast spells. If you can't sit up yet, you can use the floating technique to float yourself up and stand up straight. Even before you can walk, you can summon the hand of the mage and grab a fruit to eat. I don't need this thing. Okay, okay. Little guy who still pees his pants, don't worry so much. Hey, Ori, you peed your pants again. For children who have awakened their true names from an early age, their mental development speed is obviously higher than their physical development speed. I still can't control myself going to the toilet, but I no longer want to wear diapers. Have you never peed at your age like me? Orlian glanced down calmly. Then, his lips moved, he chanted a few words slightly, and another invisible wave of magic flashed past. Buttocks, legs, pants, clean and spotless. All the filth was swept up by an invisible magic whirlwind and thrown directly into the trash can next to it. Okay, I'm going back to reading. Have a look. You just know how to read. Come hang out with me. I can't get into Dad's mage tower. I'm not old enough to enter the wizard's tower yet. Ava, if you really want to go in, why not read the magic book with me? No way. Irelia just wants to use her brother as a shield or a pass certificate to enter the mage tower and have fun. She has seen several times that her father and his brother were doing experiments in the small laboratory of Dragon Nest. Although those experiments were not as fun as running around on the island, maybe there is something more fun in the mage tower? You can go and do your own thing, don't delay my reading. Orlian gently broke away from his sister's hand, floated himself up, and then summoned a whirlwind to push himself forward. I haven't finished reading this book today. You must read it before dinner, and then ask Dad for other books. He has seen his father's library. There are so many books, row after row, from the ceiling to the floor, the big bookshelves stretching to the sky. If you're not careful, you can get lost in there. It would be great if I could live in it. There is a water-making spell to make drinking water, a food-making spell, I haven't learned this yet, a servant from the dragon's nest to deliver food, and a cleaning technique to clean the toilet. He can live there for 10 years. 20 years. No. Come play with me. One hand grabbed the clothes behind his back without ceremony, picked him up, and ran out. Irelia shouted. Let's go. Is it really okay for us to leave it alone? In the room on the side of the hall, a pair of unscrupulous parents watched the relationship between the siblings through secret methods and whispered. Sarala still felt a little sorry for her youngest son. After all, she didn't want to be disturbed by others when she was counting the silver coins. It's okay, let them get along with each other. Greed had a different opinion. It's time for Ori to go out for activities more often. How old is he? Reading in his room all day long, not exposed to sunlight, and not running outside, is not good for the body. Did the teacher think of him this way before? I stay in the laboratory and the hospital all day long, and I look like I am not working hard. So when I get the chance, I want to give him a little warrior shock, preferably by training him into a knight. And Orlian is still a little baby. It's a little baby under 1 year old. The body is not yet mature, no, it has simply not started yet. How can it be done if we don't get more sun and exercise? Let Ava play more with Ori, and let Ori take Ava to read. The two of them spend more time together and influence each other, so each other can get better. The siblings grew up stumbling like this. At first, Orlian was helpless against his sister. He was carried away by her as soon as she asked, and he was carried around in the forest. After a year, I can use various magics to struggle a little, use the strong wind to smear her face, use vines to trip her, or when she lifts her up, she suddenly turns into a little leopard. Slip out from among the clothes and run away. Another year passed, and Gretel had to keep a close eye on him and kept drinking. Eva. Don't use too much force on your brother. Just break the barrier. Don't hit him. Ori. Freeze rays can't be hit on the ice. Neither can searing rays. Eva. Carry your brother on your back and rush through the forest. Be careful of the leaves and vines. You won't be afraid of being scratched when you transform into a dragon. My brother's skin is tender. Ori. My sister is sleeping, don't disturb her. Then why don't I sleep? You sleep too, but you are born in human form and you only need to sleep 10 hours a day. Eva is born as a dragon egg. She either doesn't sleep, or she sleeps for 3 to 5 days at a stretch, or even sleeps for more than half a year. Alas, raising a baby is so difficult. After 10 years of bumping into each other, the relationship between the siblings began to reverse slightly. Orlion has grown into a little boy. He often wears a robe, holds a big book, and walks leisurely in the forest. Eva, let me see what's wrong with you. Hurry up, hurry up. If you don't help me fix it, my parents will scold me. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1969. Ori. Please help me fix this thing. What is this? Time flies, and 5 years have passed in a flash. Irelia grew into a tall and fit girl, wearing a light brown leather armor, carrying a giant blade that was longer than her height, and striding on the road. Orlion, on the other hand, was wearing a spotless white robe, riding a phantom pony, holding a spar in his hand, which emitted thousands of light screens, and he was immersed in reading. The rolling grass and golden ears on the roadside never made him raise his head to take a look at the golden autumn harvest. This is it. Irelia threw over a black tablet, the light and shadow on it flashed and kept changing, but there were several cracks on the surface, one of which was long and deep, almost penetrating the surface of the black tablet. The light and shadow on the magic crystal plate were distorted due to the penetration of the cracks. The colors were chaotic, the lines were distorted, and they kept flashing. Orlion sighed and murmured a spell, and brilliance continued to condense. I said, how on earth did you turn it into this? He, when I was playing, I got excited and broke it, help me repair it. I will be careful in the future, I will be careful. Orlion grew up at home until he was 15 years old and had become a 7th level magician. As for Irelia, she has also grown to the young dragon stage in her dragon form. As for her human form, it is not a problem to fight 3 or 5 ordinary 7th level warriors while wielding a giant sword. So the two siblings were finally released to travel. Cross the Dragon Island east from Cyrillus territory, then go south along the Dragon Island, and then set foot on the northern land of the New World. We walked through high mountains, steep ridges, large towns, small towns, indigenous tribes, and settlements where people from the old world migrated. There is nothing unaccustomed to living in the open air, except for one thing. Eva, please don't be so heavy-handed. This thing is very difficult to repair. I can only repair the surface. What's inside, my current spells can't move it at all. As he spoke, he wiped his hand on the black tablet, and the large and small cracks on the tablet were smoothed out one by one. Irelia was overjoyed, jumped back, reached out to take it, and pressed it a few times. It lights up wrong. It lights up differently than before and you can't play with it anymore. Then you definitely can't play with it, I told you, I can only fix the outside of this thing, but I can't fix the inside. It's true, this thing brought from outside the world is really difficult to get. Irelia muttered unhappily, shaking the tablet around and around, fanning it in her hands. Ever since the legend of Langer discovered the semiconductor phenomenon, the race that came from outside the world has been in bad luck, and has been made into various things by him. It is particularly powerful and serves as the center for calculating information. The slightly weaker ones are made into various carriers for storing information, which greatly reduces the amount of magic crystal used. The magic crystal that Greet used to record light and shadow, with 10 contribution points per piece, has been reduced to 1 contribution point per piece. The weakest kind is made into various gadgets. This one in Irelia's hand is one of the gadgets, which stores 70 or 80 kinds of games. Just now, while Irelia was playing a game, she got excited and accidentally broke this gadget. Then. Forget it, let's go back to the Mage Tower and see if we can make a copy, Orlian sighed. The elder sister had a bitter look on her face. No, don't you know how to fix the games inside? How can I possibly repair it? The young man looked at his sister in disbelief. For 15 years, he has been studying hard and studying magic. Although he is only a 7th level magician, he is a 7th level magician with a complete range of skills, including elf magic and natural magic. Not to mention, I have memorized all the medical books from my father, a thick set of books called Blue Love of Life and Death, memorized. In 15 years, I had to memorize so many books, do research, create new spells, and be dragged all over the mountains and fields by my sister, which was called exercise. How can he have the time to mess with these game gadgets? These games look simple, but behind each one are very complicated spells. Not to mention, burning into these black tablets either requires a specialized mage, tattling, or requires extremely delicate mental power. It is said that in the beginning, Legend Langer and Legend Philby teamed up and spent a long time using their mental power to find a way to burn information on it. Okay, let's go to the Mage Tower. Where is the nearest Mage Tower? Let me look at the map. Hey. Aren't you responsible for looking at the map? Is this also my business? Hey. Ava shook out a huge map and lay on it to search. After searching for a long time, he raised his hand confidently and pointed to the left. Over there. Just go over that mountain and go around a small lake. Let's speed up. Sister, the phantom horse is only as fast as this, it can't go any faster. Okay, I'll put a floating saucer out and you can pull it and run. No problem. Leave it to me. Yo-ho. Irelia stretched out her hand, grabbed a magic chain thrown by her brother, and ran away. A billowing cloud of smoke passed over the ground, turning to the left. An Orlian sat cross-legged on the floating saucer, leaning on the backrest made of the mage's hands behind him, holding the crystal in his hand, and still studying hard. Stop reading. There's a fight ahead. Outside the small town, smoke and dust billowed, and a large group of magical beasts, led by a demonic cow and a giant deer, frantically attacked the city wall. On top of the city, a dozen barbarians led a group of human warriors, shouting for a fierce battle. In the center of the small town, a dazzling light rose from the Mage Tower, intimidating all directions, staring at the huge demonic wolf behind a group of demonic beasts. It seems, Mage Tower can't help me repair things for the time being. It should be. Orlian finally raised his head from the floating saucer and took a look from a distance. Either drive away the monsters, or kill them. In this Mage Tower, it seems that the presiding mage is only level 5, and the magic wolf seems to be level 7 or 8. So they probably won't be able to hold on? Will the city be broken? Maybe. Then what are you waiting for? I'm going to disperse the beasts. Ori, what are you going to do? You can turn into a dragon and roar. If you want to be safer, you can just kill it with a sword. I will put magic behind you to assist. Okay. I'm going. You follow. Irelia shouted cheerfully and swung her sword forward. The younger brother let out a long sigh. No way, just to fix a game, you have to fight such a big battle. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1970. Taya, am I going to die? At the foot of Igor Peak in Nevis, in a luxurious villa, a haggard-looking woman lay on a soft big bed. Her black hair was mostly gray, her face was gloomy, and her lips could not see any blood. Neither the soft and warm velvet nor the blazing flames in the fireplace could bring more warmth to her weak body. Beside her, Taya sat sideways, holding the other's cold and thin palm with her delicate and plump hands, trying to convey her body temperature to the woman on the bed. "Fina, don't think so much. You are just sick. When you recover, you will be fine. Don't worry, I will treat you first. If I can't do it, there is Oak Forest Hospital. I will go to Master Oak." Her eyes were filled with sadness. Back then, 5 girls, 5 sun virgins, were sent from the Kingdom of the Sun to Dragon Island to give birth to a child for a legend. She, Fina, and Lottie, Wooloo. The 5 people put together sold it for the price of an artifact. The 5 girls, as required, received fertility spells and had their eggs retrieved once a month. A year later, the first experiment was successful. From then on, she was freed from the fate of the experimenter and regained her freedom. Under the guidance of Ashu Isang, a follower of Master Life Master, learn martial arts and learn how to get along with nature. Under the guidance of Miss Anavia, learn natural spells, learn magic, and learn new languages. Help cook, help take care of the animals, help clean the cages, help do everything you can. Earn contribution points by yourself and support yourself to advance. In the past 20 years, she has gone from level 8 warrior, level 5 to 6 sun priest, to level 10 great knight, and level 13 nature priest. Full of vitality and appearance as before. Not even a single gray hair appeared on her straight, black and moist hair after the sun god took back his divine power. But, not every one of the 5 girls back then followed the same path as her. Taya whispered softly, comforted Fina for a while, gathered the power of nature to moisturize her body, and then got up and went out. Just as he closed the bedroom door, 3 women gathered around him. "Sister Taya, how is Fina? Sister Taya, will Fina's illness be cured? Sister Taya." Taya's eyes passed over them one by one, and she sighed softly. Among the 3 women, the one with the plumpest and brightest face sighed and sat back on the sofa. I knew, she shouldn't have carried that child herself, if only she was like me." "Install." Tia blurted out and drank softly. And turned his head and ignored her, tears rolling down his face. "It would be great if you could be like me, give birth to a child for Mr. Legend, and live a lifetime of comfort and carelessness. You don't have to go to the hospital to give birth in person. You are still fine now." 5 women receive 10 eggs each time, for a total of 50 eggs per month. However, even with powerful spell assistance, it is not possible to succeed every time. In fact, the eggs of the first successfully born baby came from Anne's body. To this end, Langer Legend fulfilled his promise and allocated a house for Anne in the villa area in Nevis, with monthly support of 100 gold coins. With this money, if you want to spend the day and night in any extravagant way, you can't do it. However, it is not difficult at all if you want to live comfortably in a villa, hire 2 servants, have a carriage for going in and out, eat meat and fish, and dress with silk. Since the completion of this project, Anne has been carefree and comfortable, and continues to live in the villa to this day. 100 gold coins per month is a drop in the bucket for a legend. The legend has a long lifespan, and there is no problem in supporting her until she dies. Eat, drink, go shopping, and watch the opera every day. As long as you don't look for trouble or seek death, your life will be trouble-free, peaceful, and stable. Langer Legend doesn't even care that she marries someone else or has another child. But Anne was thinking wildly, get married? Why get married? Finally, someone will support you in this life, and you will live in peace until you grow old. Why should you marry someone to serve him again? Don't you think you've suffered enough? Have another baby? That's not necessary. Having children is just to have someone to take care of you in old age. Now that someone has raised her, if she really wants to have a baby, not to mention whether the legend will fall out in the future, what if that man has no shame and gets involved? 20 years have passed leisurely like this, with no pressure or worries. The nearly 40-year-old woman has a light and graceful figure and the appearance of someone in her 30s. Yes. The two girls, Wulu and Lottie, nodded together and looked at Anne with eyes full of envy. They did not give birth to any children for Lord Legend, so the support they received was naturally much lower. A small house, 20 gold coins per month, no worries about food and drink, and a worry-free life. How rich you want to live is another matter. You still have to practice martial arts and learn spells. Is it that easy to practice martial arts? Is magic so easy to learn? I miss the years on Long Island where I was the most leisurely, prosperous, and most convenient to receive guidance from others. I failed to advance, and I will only be a 3rd and 4th level female warrior in my life. Marry, have children, and raise children, just like that, live a life of peace and comfort, not considered rich but considered comfortable. At this moment, they were worried about their sister's health inside, while several children were running and playing carefree outside, and faint laughter kept coming. Because I wanted to work hard to advance, I spent several more years practicing martial arts. I missed the most beautiful appearance, and I failed to advance to the knight level. In the end, the magician from Dragon Island did not hook up with anyone, but just randomly married a low-level knight in Nevis. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have practiced anything. Isn't it nice to just enjoy it honestly? Although Wulu didn't blurt out the words, the look on her face was clearly visible. After practicing and studying until now, my body is thin and my appearance is old. It's better to live like an, leisurely and stable, and spend a lifetime. Anyway, these sun virgins, the daughters of these little nobles, this is the fate. Wulu, Lottie frowned and shouted softly, Sister Taya is doing it for our own good. It was our own fault that we didn't persist. Taya waved her hands gently, not taking these complaints to heart. Whether she admires or complains, it doesn't matter to her. She just hopes that everyone will be well and not end up like Fina. Are legendary children so easy to have? Fina got pregnant by herself and gave birth to the child by herself. Even though she was cared for by healing techniques and nourished by various kinds of monster meat, magic plant fruits, nectar, etc., she was almost sucked dry. After being nursed for half a year after birth, the child was taken away and given to someone to take care of. Until now, we have not met. The foundation is damaged and the thoughts are broken. Fina barely managed to support herself for 20 years. Even with excellent support, 1,000 gold coins per month as pocket money, various medicines and various supplements, she still can't support herself today. Lady Tia. The bedroom door creaked and opened again. A little maid rushed out with a face full of panic. Owner. Tia's figure flashed past her side and rushed directly into the bedroom. Behind him, Anne, Lottie, and Wulu, 3 women, rushed in one after another. They saw Fina on the bed holding Tia's hand, breathing hard. Son, my son. And couldn't bear to turn her head away. She also gave birth to a child, but that was done by handing over the egg, and then everything was processed in the laboratory. After the sperm and egg were successfully combined, he grew up in the alchemy warehouse and had nothing to do with her. She didn't miss the child much either. But Fina, her son, was her real son. He was pregnant for 10 months and breastfed for half a year. It can be said that he grew up sucking her bones and blood. However, half a year later, he was taken away by someone sent by Langer Legend and was brought up by special personnel. After that, legend of Langer found a noble woman from the kingdom of Kent to give birth to children for him. Apart from paying him regularly, he never heard from them again. More than 10 years of separation and more than 10 years of missing each other. Now, Fina is dying. The other 3 women could only look at Taya helplessly. These people, who have been supported for 20 years, have made no progress and have no qualifications to speak. Tia, only Tia. Taya lowered her eyebrows and gently stroked Fina's palm, conveying her body temperature and feeling the fluctuations of her life with the power of nature. After a long time, he said softly, "Fina, please understand that you can only see her this once." Whether it was the child who had no relationship with his biological mother and had never met her, or the legend of Langer, they would not tolerate Fina calling people to meet again and again on the grounds of being seriously ill and dying. It's better. If you see this, you will get a wish. If you are not lucky, if you see this, Fina will die. The woman on the hospital bed shrank her pupils. She closed her eyes, panted for a while, and then nodded with all her strength. Just this once. Okay. I'll go find him. Taya stood up suddenly and strode away. In front of the bed, 3 former virgins of the sun leaned together, watching her retreating back, holding each other's hands tightly. I hope Tia can bring someone here, I hope she can still have some face in front of the legend of Langer. Within an hour, Taya left and came back. Behind her was an 18-year-old young man with black hair and brown eyes. His face was a little impatient, but he followed her in honestly. This is your biological mother. Stay with her for a while. Taya gave a gentle instruction and retreated to the corner of the room to sit down. Lottie quickly came over. Has Your Excellency received you? No. I asked for a letter from the teacher, and the great mage in charge of the mage tower received me. Ah, so good. Several former Sun Virgins sighed together. I can also find Ashui-san, a half-step legend, the wife of a legendary warrior, and I can also bring the legendary Sun over. Sister Tia, she is really amazing. Faced with the envy of her sisters, Taya remained silent. She felt the life breath in Fina's body that suddenly became stronger but then weakened quickly, and she felt various emotions in her heart. Alas, everyone's ending is the path they choose. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1971. Meow. Mr. Trochka, you are a magical creature. You are not a cat. You don't have to think of yourself as a cat. Mr. Trochka jumped lightly onto the experimental table. From the laboratory door to every experimental platform, there are heavy spells and spells to blockade them. People who don't have the corresponding spell keys can't even get close, but it jumps straight in and ignores these spells and spells to blockade. Meow. Mr. Trochka, be careful. Don't touch these reagents. Don't touch. It will explode if you break it. No. Don't touch the microscope. It has just been adjusted. Mr. Trochka jumped up and down on the experimental table demonstratively. With a swipe of the paw, a flask fell to the ground and was smashed into 2 pieces. With a swipe of the tail, another beaker fell to the ground and was smashed into several pieces. Mr. Trochka. Let's talk it over. Come out, come out. Lin En was frightened and opened her hands to protect the experimental table, feeling anxious. He has the ability to use magic to directly bring Mr. Trochka out, but if he angers this guy, the experimental table will definitely be destroyed with a casual sweep. Secondly, Mr. Trochka had been with him through life and death several times, and he could not bear to do anything harsh to it. Besides, Mr. Trochka is only pushing empty bottles and test tubes, not touching the containers filled with reagents or the petri dishes containing samples. It is obviously just a threat and venting of anger, and there is still room for a good discussion. Mr. Trochka, Lin had a splitting headache. After this jump, if nothing else, the ultra-clean experimental bench is finished. All experiments had to be redone, all samples thrown out, and the lab bench re-sterilized. Fortunately, this experiment has just begun. Then again, it is because this experiment has just begun, that's why Mr. Trochka is making such a fuss. Meow. 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 Mr. Trochka. He is the cat god. He is the cat god. He is an ancient god. He may not be able to give you a child. Meow. The black cat in the white scarf and white gloves jumped up from the experimental table and onto Lin's shoulders. Even though he was equipped with all kinds of defensive magic on a daily basis, Lin still felt pain on the back of his hand, and there were 5 long blood marks on it. Since swallowing the falcon god's apology feather, Mr. Trochka has been sleeping and sleeping for almost a year. After waking up, both energy level and personality have been greatly improved. From then on, I rushed towards level 15. It reached level 15 even earlier than Lin. Lin N is happy to see this happen. Not only was he not jealous, but he worked hard to save resources and try to help Mr. Trochka become stronger and more powerful. But even so, there are some requirements that he cannot fulfill. Mr. Trochka. He is an ancient god. Although he has been sleeping for a long time and the earliest followers are gone, he was once of high status. Lin tried his best to grab the black cat's neck, lift it off his shoulders, and then stretched his arms to try to keep it as far away from him as possible. I really may not be able to give birth to a child for you. Besides, you are the product of magical energy aggregation, and your essence is not cells and genes, right? Can you really give birth to a child? Meow ouch 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 dash. Cat shadowless claws. Lin raised his arms in front of his face. Soon, all the magic defenses on his forearms, the 2 arm guards made of specially toughened rock crocodile skin, and the robe under the arm guards were shattered, and there were a few more long blood marks on his forearms. Besides, you don't know her. You just met a contractor of the cat god at Greet's wedding and felt her aura. You really ran over there, not to mention the proposal or anything else, you had to be accepted by her. Give me a beating. Meow roar dash. The black cat grew bigger and bigger, from a black cat with a white scarf, white gloves, and pink pads on its paws, to a dark, majestic, and sleek black panther. The panther swooped down on Lin, knocking him straight to the ground. A ray of light flashed through the golden eyes, and a low, majestic roar came from his throat, and then... lick. Licking hard. Mr. Trochka. That's enough. If you lick it again, you will lick my face off. In the end, Lin still couldn't defeat Mr. Trochka. There was no choice but to stop the experiment, entrust the students to other necromancers, and then embark on the long journey to the Black Continent. Go east from Nevis, follow the canal to the eastern seaport of the Kingdom of Kent, and take a boat south. Cross the Hall Strait, come to the pass at the junction of the Sea of Tranquility and the Sea of Storms, and change into the ship of the Orc Kingdom. Then sail along the south coast of the Sea of Tranquility until you reach the northeastern part of the Black Continent, land in the fertile delta, and plunge into the Black Continent. The journey of a magician, especially that of a high-level magician, is quite comfortable and not difficult at all. Lin N rode the phantom pony with her forehooves slightly in the air, crossing the swamp and passing through the quicksand, as if walking on flat ground. A black cloud gathered above his head, and the scorching sun could only shine down, but it did not burn his head and face at all. Keep cold and heat resistant hanging around you at all times to adjust the desert's scorching heat during the day and freezing temperatures at night to a comfortable and cool environment. The latest version cold and heat resistant can even adjust the humidity so that the desert heat cannot hurt him. As for food and drinking water, bring more than enough. The desert is barren and there are few magical beasts. There are even fewer that can threaten high-level mages. The most dangerous thing is to encounter a certain brass dragon that has taken root in the desert. Senior. I am a follower of His Excellency Life Control. Well, Gretel's name is so useful. Walking and stopping like this, following the guidance given by the cat god's contractor, following the ancient and wild, intermittent residual breath. I walked through 1 abandoned temple, 2 abandoned temples, 3 abandoned temples. Finally, one night with bright stars and a waning moon like a hook, Lin lit a bonfire and was cooking fish soup for himself and Mr. Trochka when a black mist suddenly filled the distance. The black mist got closer and closer, and finally, a girl with dark skin, slender figure and hot figure came uninvited and sat beside Lin An's campfire. "Hello, your soup smells delicious. Can I try it?" The girl was wearing a thin gauze, with 2 armbands fastened to her upper arms, and a golden collar around her neck, which restrained the gauze from slipping off. Lin only glanced at her, then politely looked away and looked at her. Those bright, cat-like almond-shaped eyes blinked, revealing a smile, and confidently stretched out his hand. "Can you serve some for me?" Talking about it, the eyes are flowing and the brilliance is shining. Lin avoided his eyes reflexively, half turned around, and hurriedly went to ladle the soup. He scooped out more than half of the bowl, added another spoonful, and handed it to the woman's hand. The woman reached out to catch it. Just as she caught it, her hand suddenly shook and she blurted out, "Ah! It's so hot dash." 2 drops of hot soup fell on her hand, and she subconsciously retracted her hand. The soup bowl tilted sideways and was about to tip over. The woman hurriedly stretched out her hand forward, holding the edge of the soup bowl with both hands. Her warm fingertips brushed against the back of Lin An's hand, intentionally or unintentionally. A soft, warm fragrance hits my face. My woo. Next to Lin, Mr. Trochka suddenly jumped out and lay beside the bonfire, staring at the woman with burning eyes. The woman turned her head and stared at the cat, then suddenly smiled, with a sound like a silver bell. "Oh! This cat is so cute, can I pet it?" Mr. Trochka simply jumped slightly and brushed against her knees. The woman happily touched it from head to tail, and then from tail to head, picked up the bowl, and began to lick the soup in the bowl. "Stick out the tip of your tongue, lick it quickly, roll up a little soup and take it back, lick it again, roll up a little more soup and take it back, so fast that there is almost an after-image." At the same time, a pair of wonderful eyes kept spinning around Lin An's body. Lin. Why does he feel that this person is trying to seduce him? He doesn't think he has anything worth seducing. In terms of age, he is already over 50, so he can be considered a veteran. In terms of appearance, he was not handsome when he was young. After being a necromancer for so many years, he has been soaked in the aura of death and cannot be repaired. In terms of temperament, he has never been the cheerful and interesting type. Gloomy and unsociable are common comments about necromancers, and he is no exception. When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. He still hasn't figured out what the female snake in the Eagle Country saw in him, but he almost died that time. If Little Greed had not come all the way to save people, he would have really died. Now it seems that this lady seems to be interested in him again. The origin of this lady is unknown, and her aura is dark and dark. Lin An was secretly vigilant, applied a few more defensive spells to herself, and moved back. "Ma'am, you eat slowly, I'm going to rest first." As he spoke, he opened the mage's hut and walked inside. The scent of fragrance stirred behind him, and the lady with coquettish appearance and hot figure rushed forward and hugged his arm directly. "Hey, powerful spellcaster, don't leave in such a hurry. It's rare to meet here, the aura on your body is so charming." She took a deep breath. Lin An's heart was filled with alarm, and he quickly broke away, quickly dodged, and teleported dozens of steps. Before he could speak, an angry roar sounded under the desert stars. Meow. Roar. Mr. Trochka looked up to the sky and roared. Amid the roar, all the hair on his body moved automatically, and his body grew bigger and bigger. Why is this? Why is this? It's obviously me who came to find her, it's obviously me who wants to pursue her. Why does she like you? Why does she come to seduce you? No, little kitten, you are quite cute too. The lady smiled softly, blinked her cat-like almond-shaped eyes, and suddenly a long cat tail poked out from behind her and shook it. There was a soft meow from the side, and a large group of cats of various colors, black cats, white cats, orange cats, calico cats, with different fur colors and shapes, appeared out of thin air and surrounded them from all directions. Look, many of my children are interested in you. 2 more bonuses will be added. The reward is finally over. This book is asking for monthly passes for the last month. Please check the monthly passes in your hands and give this book away as a gift. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1972. I, Andrew Lin, originally thought that becoming a 7th or 8th level magician would be the end of my life. After all, I don't have any particularly great qualifications, even though I am the disciple of a legend. I am not even qualified to stay in Nevis and was sent out directly. The euphemistic name is walking around, looking for inspiration and opportunities, but in fact, the teacher didn't want me anymore and kicked me out. Not qualified to enter the Babel Tower, not qualified to enter any auxiliary tower, not qualified to work in the laboratory of any high-level mage. Also, after 8 years of study, you will never be able to advance to the 5th level mage. In a place like Nevis, such qualifications are still far, far away from being outstanding. So I was kicked out. He adventured everywhere, wandered around, hunted monsters, dug up corpses in ancient battlefields, and crossed the Hall Strait. Finally, I caught some inspiration and settled down near the Mage Tower where my friend, Master Gearman, was stationed. I dug a cave and planned to conduct experiments quietly and break through to the 5th level mage. Unexpectedly, before the experiment was completed, a small group of inexplicable guys broke into my residence. Now, I am already an 18th level high-level mage, and I have begun to attack the legend. Then, after being unable to defeat Mr. Trochka and taking him to the desert to pursue the ancient cat god, he was pursued by an unknown woman. So why am I being pursued again? Why did Mr. Trochka's suspected object of pursuit come to seduce me? What special charm do I have that makes me pursued by these weird women? I'm sorry, ma'am, I really don't have this idea. Lin stepped back step by step. The nephrite in his arms was fragrant, and the woman who was suspected of being a cat goddess kept throwing herself into his arms. He could only try his best to protect himself. The defensive spells solidified on the body, the various defensive spells learned over the years, the magic equipment brought this time, and the various defensive spells that can be activated. The legendary equipment that Gretel gave him to protect his mind, which was designed to target various mind spells such as shock, temptation, distortion, etc., now shone with a circle of brilliance, shrouding his whole person in it. Oh, don't be like this. The magic halo opened, and the woman who appeared inexplicably had to take a step back, and then another step. She tilted her head cutely, raised a smile, and showed 2 thin tiger teeth. I don't want to do anything to you, you are just looking for fun and fun. The weather is so nice, let's have some fun, don't keep a straight face all day long. As he spoke, the gauze on his body lifted up and fluttered in the wind. The starlight was like silver, draping over her body, adding even more charm to her. A layer of soft down grew on her flirtatious cheeks, and her ears moved and deformed. Above her head, 2 pointed, furry little ears stretched out, turning left and right, back and forth. The long tail behind him swept back and forth, occasionally passing over Mr. Trochka's head, and occasionally walking playfully close to the ground and hooking towards Lin's feet. Even if it can't break through the defensive circle, it still adds a thrilling charm. Lin En was even more vigilant. He took a few steps back. When he raised his hand, a wall of white bones appeared out of thin air and blocked the two of them. They were about to retreat into the mage's cabin. But the woman pounced forward, her body was soft, and she somehow got through the gaps between the bone spears, and leaned towards Lin En again, making Lin En couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, are all cats made of water? Even Catwoman is so flexible and soft. Unfortunately, when I faced the female snake decades ago, I was not moved at all. Now I don't care even more, not to mention, this time it's, came for Mr. Trochka. Seeing that she could no longer lean on him, the strange woman smiled slightly and took 2 steps back. Raise your hands, stand on tiptoes, stretch your arms, bend down, gracefully and wantonly, dance a dance you have never seen before. The woman's limbs were incredibly soft and flexible. Every time you raise your hand, every wave of your arm, every time you spread your fingertips, it's like a bright and beautiful flower blooming under the moon. Every time I lower my waist, every time I turn, the veil on my body flutters in the wind, and a mouth-drying fragrance hits me. Not to mention, the small golden bells on her wrists and ankles kept making crisp sounds. When it is urgent, it is like rain hitting lotus flowers. When it slows down, it is like a small paw, gently scratching your heart. Lin's mouth was dry. He tried hard not to pounce, and thought hard. Who is this? Who is this? Cat priest? Contractor of the cat god? Or did the cat god come in person in some way? In the ancient legends of the Black Continent, the cat god's duties indeed include directions such as reproduction, family, protection of young children, and even entertainment and sexual intercourse. Of course, music and dance are people's instincts. Which god's dedication and sacrifice can't be separated from music and dance? It would be nice if he came in person, Mr. Trochka, and he would get what he wanted. By the way, how is Mr. Trochka? His mental power swept through the bone wall, and Mr. Trochka was surrounded by a group of cats, with high and low meows coming one after another. Either soft, crisp, childish, charming, you name it. Mr. Trochka was still fuming and angry earlier. He kept sweeping and knocking away the big kittens, and kept pounced in the direction of Catwoman. But as he fluttered and fluttered, his movements became slower. After being rubbed and licked by the kittens, he actually turned back to nuzzle those kittens. Lin En frowned secretly and shouted loudly. Mr. Trochka. While shouting, he had already mobilized the contract between himself and the other party, which was severely shaken. Mr. Trochka jolted awake. A ball of golden light rolled up around it, repelling all the cats, large and small. Then he kicked hard and flew up, rushing towards Catwoman who was dancing wantonly. Meow dash. Oh, little guy, why did you rush over? Catwoman may have been caught off guard, or perhaps on purpose, and was pounced upon by Mr. Trochka. She stretched her soft limbs, took the black cat in her arms, and let it rub against her shoulder desperately, smiling. Do you like me so much? Why, you don't particularly like any of my children. Mr. Trochka nuzzled her, licked her, and spread his scent on her. Catwoman opened her arms and rubbed him into her arms. So it's me you like. Oh, the aura on you is so charming, so deep, so ancient. The black mist opened and shrank. Catwoman suddenly turned into a black cat, landed on the ground, and barked loudly at Mr. Trochka. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1973. I'm going to learn magic. Learn magic. dreaming. You think I don't know what you want to do? Are you going to learn magic? Are you going to the Mage Tower to play games? Dear Master Mage, has the new game arrived? No, okay, then I'll come back in a few days. My Lord Bishop, in the past 6 months, the number of nobles and noble children entering the Mage Tower has increased by more than 5 times. I suggest that the Holy See should strengthen publicity in sermons to remind everyone not to fall into the temptation of the devil. Since the legend of Langer pioneered the reuse of Zerg carapace, his disciples have devoted themselves to the research and application of semiconductors in large numbers. The batch with the highest level and the most delicate mental power cut the Zerg carapace into extremely small pieces, and then carved fine lines inside that were indistinguishable to the naked eye. The spell core created in this way is only as small as a fingernail and can carry an extremely large amount of information. The core used to make spell equipment, especially the core of one-time long-range strike spell equipment, is very easy to use. The group who are most proficient in the Mage Tower Spirit have developed a method of using this Zerg carapace to make the Mage Tower Spirit. Although these Tower Spirits are not as good as high-level Tower Spirits and Super Tower Spirits in terms of intelligence level, guided magic power, etc., they have greatly reduced the production costs of low-level Tower Spirits. Thanks to this invention, the Parliament's Tower Spirit production increased significantly, and the Parliament was able to spread Mage Towers to every town in the Kingdom of Kent and every county in the Old World. To produce Tower Spirits, there is no longer a need for high-level mages to be exhausted and release the 8th level construction spirit awakening technique one by one. You only need to cut off a piece of Zerg carapace that meets the requirements, shape it, and then connect it to special magic equipment. Use the magic equipment to input information into it, and you can make a usable Tower Spirit. In these 2 directions alone, the legend of Langer has climbed from the 1st level of legend to the 2nd level of legend in 40 years. Among the disciples, 2 legends have advanced, a group of half-step legends, and a group of disciples have reached level 17 and are heading towards legend. But more importantly, the legend of Langer has opened up an extremely broad promotion channel for the alchemy department. Those who have strong hands-on skills and are good at knocking, tinkering, and refining can certainly continue to pursue the path of making utensils. Those who have weak hands-on skills but are good at designing how semiconductors work, can't they at least still program? Above, thank you, Your Excellency, Life Controller, for bestowing the title of programmer on these spellcasters. It is said that this title came about because Legend Langer cursed angrily one day. Such a crude spellcasting ability is worse than a monkey. However, the greatest achievement of Langer's legend is to open up an entire advanced route of programming. A high-level spellcaster can handle the entire Mage Tower Spirit program alone. Intermediate spellcasters can single-handedly compile complex spell models into those light, not light things, burn them into the insect shell, and make them into the control core of magic equipment. And low-level spellcasters. Puff. 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 Crash. Dilly, p. Dilly, p. Gretel walked past a student with an expressionless expression. He didn't even need to look or use his mental power to scan. Just by relying on this special sound effect, he knew what the child was playing, and he couldn't hold his head up while playing. Snake. In other words, there is a game in this world that is very similar and almost the same as Snake. Recently, a newly promoted 3rd-level magician under Langer's legendary sect has only released this one game and accumulated enough contribution points for him to research to the 10th level. Almost all magicians have one, including Gretel and Cyrilla. Moreover, the magic tablet was sold overseas, and thousands of copies were sold in the Old Continent. Not counting this, every mage tower in the Old Continent has burned a copy for those nobles and wealthy businessmen who are qualified to climb the mage tower to download the game from the mage tower. As a result, almost all mages below level 5 in the lineage of Langer's legend couldn't help but dive into game programming. For a time, all kinds of weird sound effects, all kinds of weird images, and all kinds of inexplicable ideas were flying around in the alchemy department. Look, how about we make a magic shooting game? Set the power of various spells, and both sides choose the landing point and fight against each other. I think divine spells should be added, as well as warrior attacks. Actually, I think there should be more beautiful female magicians. How about we ask the control department to help? They are the best at this. I think it would be more convenient to hire some girls to leave magical images. Langer legend is more than angry. This is what makes me angry. We are spellcasters. Spellcasters. Pursuing stronger power and deeper mysteries is our goal. Look at what they are busy doing now. Busy writing programs, busy writing games. Writing programs is not bad. It is said that it has greatly improved the work efficiency of the Parliament, as well as the speed of storing and transferring various information. Just write a game. No. We can't let them go on like this. Langer legend gritted his teeth, wanting to drive all the magicians who followed the procedural route out of the alchemy system. However, it is not possible. Many low-level mages start from programming, understand the structure of spells, and embark on the path of weaving working methods for the Mage Tower spirit and adding wisdom to the Mage Tower spirit. Therefore, he could only find another way. Otherwise, we pass a bill to impose heavy taxes on entertainment tablets or all game development income. Greet complained calmly. I also think that these entertainment games will cause a large number of young mages to become addicted to games and neglect mental training and magic learning, which will have a negative impact on their growth. Hey, this is punishing our alchemy department. Langer legend jumped up. Why? Money. Income. How important this is. Why take a commission from our alchemy department? Then you can figure it out yourself. Greet spread his hands and said. Recently, Oak Grove Hospital has received many complaints, saying that the children's eyesight has declined sharply after holding the tablet for a long time and playing games. Be careful if they kill your disciples. Hey. Those parents who don't want to take care of their children just throw tablets to their children to make trouble. Can you blame me? This book is about to say goodbye. In the last month, please throw in some monthly tickets to give away cats. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 1974. Hello, Mr. Ashu. Mr. Ashu, I have to work hard for you again today. Mr. Ashu, thank you for your teaching. Oak Grove Hospital is named after the giant oak tree in the atrium of the hospital. The oak tree is more than 100 meters tall, with a trunk diameter of more than 5 meters and a canopy covering an area of more than 2 acres. This giant oak tree is the personal staff of Life Control, the legendary natural mage, and has inherited most of his knowledge and abilities. For a long time, it has stood in the atrium of Oak Grove Hospital, treating countless difficult and complicated diseases and educating generations of healers. The Oak Grove Hospital was remodeled again and again, eventually forming a square layout. The emergency building faces the street, the outpatient building faces sideways, the inpatient department faces the emergency building, and the medical school faces the outpatient building. The branches and leaves of the giant oak tree extend into the emergency, inpatient, and outpatient buildings to help the therapists share the medical pressure. When there are particularly many patients or critically ill patients, the patients can be directly lifted under the canopy. Thousands of branches and leaves are hanging down, and one leaf can treat one person. One group of people are treated like an assembly line and one group is carried out. One tree can be used by dozens or hundreds of healers with full firepower. On the other side, you can also reach into the various classrooms of the medical school to teach the healers. His teaching efficiency is even higher than the Nordmark legend. After all, Sir Legend can only teach one class at a time, and even if he holds a large class, it can only accommodate up to 200 people. Mr. Ashu can teach at least 20 classes at a time. Even if there are only 20 students in a class, he can teach 400 students at the same time. What's more, when Mr. Ashu starts classes, it is basically normal for a class to have 40 students. Not only can he give lectures, he can also lead anatomy classes and experimental classes, projecting simulated light and shadow, allowing students to try simulated anatomy and simulated operations. Basically, Mr. Ashu, with just one tree, can stand up to the entire faculty of Gretel, a top medical school in his previous life. Of course, with such a training model, the training accuracy is very problematic. It is not easy to win the favor of Mr. Ashu. In most cases, he is just a ruthless projection machine, playing on demand, recording and playing the same lessons, and only showing the same lesson plans. As for what students don't understand and want to ask, they are lucky enough to get an answer, but in most cases, they are always unlucky. You don't even understand this. Swish. The branches crackled, pulling the fool out of the room. You can't even understand this. Swish. The leaves were flying, and the yellow leaves that were about to wither and fall off made this fool look bad. Did you fall asleep in your last class? Bang bang. The acorns shot like flying arrows, making this fool run away with his head in his arms. There is no such thing as being distracted in class. If you are distracted, reading novels, playing games, whispering, any behavior that violates classroom disciplines will be punished by tree branches. There is no such thing as cheating in the examination room. Anyone who peeks at textbooks/materials, peeks at other people's test papers, tries to use communication/psychic connection to ask for answers, uses divination to get answers, etc. will have branches wrapped around his waist. Simply throw out of the examination room. Only in rare cases, a handful of students who are smart, hard-working, and able to ask excellent questions will be looked upon with special attention by Lord Ashu. Ah, is it so difficult? A small voice sounded from the queue of young magicians. I was shaking a little, and I felt like I wanted to run out. This group of magicians were sent to visit by the Magic Academy and were interested in developing into healers. However, I still feel a little frightened when I see my seniors being beaten in various ways through the window and being splashed with various blades. So strict? Will I still get beaten in class? Even the teachers at the Magic Academy stopped beating them. Of course, that was probably because the teachers were generally not high level and had limited magic control. If they were hit with magic, they would be easily beaten to death. What's the big deal if I get slapped a few times by Mr. Ashu? The healer who guided them and explained proudly held up his chest and pointed to a green leaf on his chest. Look. If Mr. Ashu likes you, this is a gift. Only 10 medical students in each class can get this gift. Wow, this leaf. The young mage who asked the question looked at the leaves in awe, then turned to look at the large oak tree above their heads that blocked the sky and the sun. It seems that the green leaves on the healer's chest are no different from the green leaves on the branches of the oak tree. However, standing in front of the healer, one can feel the surging vitality on the green leaves. This leaf alone is already equivalent to a level 3, level 4, no, at least level 5 magic scroll, right? This leaf comes with 3 healing serious injuries. It can be used to save others at critical moments, or it can be automatically triggered to treat yourself. The healer who led the way gently touched the leaf. More importantly, by wearing this leaf, you can get the guidance and protection of the forest in the forest, and you can ask any ancient tree for help. Even ferocious beasts will not hurt the person wearing the leaf as long as you don't attack. Those graduates who got the leaves even organized an association called the Green Oak Leaf Alliance. Encourage each other, support each other, regularly send information to each other, and share the latest treatment progress. And their leader is called Acorn. Well, the best graduate every year sometimes gets an acorn. If you are not lucky, you will get silver acorns. If you are lucky, you will get golden acorns. Silver acorns and golden acorns store more healing spells, which can be used as a small amplification weapon. In extreme cases, it can also be expanded and used as a computing center. What should I do if I don't have a tower spirit with me when rescuing people in the wild and doing CT scans? Isn't this an acorn? I want to get this too. Dozens of pairs of eyes stared at the green leaf, so hot that they almost made a hole in the green leaf. The healer who led the way smiled proudly. Healers of the natural school, if you have an oak staff with you, you can also bring it to the hospital. Mr. Ashu is happy to teach your oak staff. Of course, how much you can learn depends on your level and the wisdom of the oak staff. It's boring. Let them take advantage. Why are you so biased toward the natural school of thought? Your Excellency, Life Controller, is obviously a magician, isn't he? But there's nothing you can do about envy. Not everyone can become a magician and practice nature priest at the same time. Cultivating oak trees also requires resources, extremely huge resources. In addition, there is still a trick. If you get the favor of Lord Ashu, you can also plant acorns into oak staffs. However, without the secret method of the natural priest, oak staffs cannot grow together, and in fact they are not very useful. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1975. Grandma. Look at this dress of mine. Is it beautiful? The 14-year-old young girl stood on tiptoes and walked around in front of Lady Roche, former deputy captain of the Royal Guard, captain of the Queen's personal guard, and the Sky Knight Her Excellency Selina. The old lady raised her head slightly and watched her granddaughter's skirt spinning in front of her like flowers, illuminating her eyes. Time flies by, and the young girl back then is now nearly 100 years old, but her waist is still straight and she does not lean back softly on the chair. She looked her granddaughter up and down and nodded with a smile. My little Pamela is the most beautiful. Well, dressed like this, where are you going? The ball at Duke Marion's house. Grandma, do you think I am more beautiful, or Valna? Will Heath invite me to the first dance? That must be the beauty of my granddaughter. As for Heath. She pondered for a moment, slowly chewed the name of this new young man, and waved her granddaughter over. Pamela, tell Grandma, do you like him? Do you want to marry him? Not really. The young girl hesitated for a rare moment. She held her hands in front of her and twisted them for a while, then moved closer in small steps and leaned against her grandmother. Heath is pretty good, but he has a lot of freckles on his nose, which I don't like. Hector is more handsome than him, but his knight rank is lower than his. All day long, he only knows how to brag about his family background, or take people out to hunt. Lions is actually the best, but he is just a country knight. If he wants to climb up, he has to go through wind and rain and climb up in the navy. Selina's face remained unchanged as she listened to her granddaughter counting the young men pursuing her one by one. Finally, let out a long sigh. Oh, why can't I be like you, a noble knight with a good family, handsome appearance, and strong strength as my husband? Grandma, I envy you. Really? But Grandma didn't meet your grandpa at the beginning. Selina smiled, looking at her young and charming granddaughter who was troubled by the smallest things, and stretched out her hand to pull her close to her. On body. Grandma, before, she had a crush on a magician. Do you want to hear it? Think and think. Grandma, tell me. Who is that magician? Is he very powerful? No. When Grandma met him, he was still a second-level little magician. But at that time, she was moved, quietly did some things, and laid some chess pieces. Invite him to his castle to conduct physical examinations on his people. When the other party promotes public health plans, express support, and make generous donations. When there is a dance at home, send out invitations and invite him to come. However, before they could really hook up, many things happened one after another. Then, the little magician took off all the way and flew to a place where she could not reach her. What happened next? Later, when the little magician returned, he was accompanied by a beautiful and powerful silver-haired elf. At first glance, she knew she had no chance. That silver-haired elf's heart and eyes were full of that little magician. Ah! Elves are so annoying, Pamela waved her fist slightly. Of course Grandma is very good and very strong, a female heavenly knight, one of only a handful in the entire kingdom. Moreover, looking at the portrait when she was young, my grandmother's appearance can be said to be beautiful, heroic, and unforgettable. However, there is really not much comparison between human appearance in front of elves. No. That girl really loves him. Selena laughed. She shook her head very slowly, and the stories she heard later about how the silver-haired elf and the little magician got along came to mind. That girl accompanied him to the battlefield and accompanied him on his journey to the New World. Accompany him from the northern part of the New World to the southern tip of the New World, and then from the Elf Island to the north to Dragon Island. So desperate, giving all your love. Feelings, time, youth, life, everything, are splashed out brilliantly, just to spend that unique period of time with that person. That's love. Only after seeing her look did I know that I was not in love with that little magician at all. She looked at the young magician and thought, my family is pressing for marriage, and I need a husband. What I was thinking was, I need a husband who is strong enough to satisfy my family and help me support the family business without taking away my territory. Well, although this young magician is only level 2, he is very talented. Okay, it looks appropriate. What I was thinking was, he seems to be all focused on research. If I want to have a good relationship with him, how can I get started? Ah, that's it? Pamela sighed a little, feeling disappointed but also a little happy for her grandfather. It's a pity that my grandmother didn't fall in love with the little magician, but it's great that my grandmother never fell in love with anyone else before my grandfather. So what happened next? Were you together with Grandpa? Of course not. When I looked at them, I suddenly understood. What does she want? Why does she want to be with that magician? Is it to conform to the ideas of family and the world that when you reach your age, you should get married? Is it to find someone who is better and will not harm her, to help her keep the family business? Then what? Get married, have children, manage the territory, raise children, and go through life step by step. So, what is the purpose of all the sweat she has spent these years practicing martial arts to become a 7th level knight? Has her life passed like this? She was unwilling to give in. She is not willing to give in. So, she drew her sword and traveled south from Nevis to become the queen's bodyguard. She was also valued by his great-uncle Thunder Sword Master and was accepted as a disciple. In just a few years, he became a Grand Knight and climbed all the way up to the Sky Knights. With such talent, such hard work, and loyalty to the Queen, the Thundering Sword Master valued her and brought her and his great-nephew together. This time, she followed her own will, got along with the young man for a long time, and only married him after she truly fell in love with him. After giving birth to children and raising children, so many years passed in a blink of an eye. Pamela, remember, you have to remember, when you are born into a family like ours, you don't have to wrong yourself. You can marry the person you like, only when you marry someone who truly loves each other can you be happy. So what if he doesn't like me? Improve yourself. If you become excellent, good men will naturally fall in love with you. Taking a step back, even if there is no fate, becoming excellent yourself is the most reliable guarantee for living a good life. This book will be finished soon. Finally, everyone should cast some monthly votes to give it a ride. Let's vote at least 2,000 times this month. The cat rolled, bowed, waggled its tail, waved its paws, and begged everyone for votes.